Okay, so we've got some really interesting stuff to dig into today about cybersecurity. And, it seems like you want to get past just the typical advice about, changing your passwords and things like that.
Yeah.
Which is great because that Tech Uncovered episode that you sent, really gets into some deeper issues.
Yeah, it does.
So let's, I guess let's just dive in and try to uncover the real story here. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds good. I think one of the things that the episode does really well right off the
Yeah.
bat is that it kind of challenges this idea that, there's such a thing as like a digital fortress,
Yeah.
like that we can ever be like 100% secure online,
Yeah.
which is something that I think a lot of people, they want to believe or they think that they've achieved. But yeah, it does a good job of sort of like dismantling that idea.
Yeah, it's so easy to kind of fall into that trap, right? Like
Right.
you've got a strong password and maybe some antivirus software and you feel like, okay, I'm good. But then, you hear about something like the Equifax breach, and it's kind of like a stark reminder that like nobody is really invulnerable.
Right.
I mean, how many millions of people were impacted by that?
Oh, tons of people were impacted.
And the thing that's so crazy about that is that like Equifax knew about that vulnerability,
It
right?
did, yeah.
But they didn't fix it.
Yeah. So I think that, it's really crucial, right, is understanding kind of like the why behind that inaction.
Yeah.
Like, why didn't they fix it? And reports indicate that it wasn't actually a technical barrier. Like, it wasn't that they couldn't patch the vulnerability. It seems that the delay really stemmed from, some kind of cost-to-benefit analysis that just went really, really wrong. So basically, they looked at the potential financial hit of a breach, like what would happen if they got breached. And they weighed that against, the cost of taking immediate action.
Right.
And, well, I mean, we saw how that played out, right?
Yeah. Not so good. That's kind of a chilling thought, though, right? Like a company essentially saying, you know what? We're going to prioritize profit over like the security of our users' data.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how often that calculation is being made like behind closed doors.
Oh, I'm sure it's happening more than we'd like to believe. Yeah, for sure. And this actually leads us to like a really unsettling truth about all of this, which is that, a lot of this data that's stolen, it doesn't just like vanish into thin air.
Right.
It actually fuels this thriving cybercrime economy that's lurking, in the shadows of the internet.
Yeah.
The dark web.
Yeah, the dark web. We hear that term thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
But like, what is that really? It's more than just like, a digital Wild West, right?
Yeah, it's way more than that.
Like what makes it so difficult to actually police?
Well, I mean, think of it this way. I mean, it's designed for anonymity, right?
Okay.
So you're talking like a labyrinth of all these encrypted networks and hidden servers and, digital addresses that are constantly shifting.
Right.
And then you have all these transactions that are happening using cryptocurrencies, which makes them like incredibly difficult to trace.
Yeah.
And then on top of all of that, the people that are operating in these spaces are incredibly skilled, right?
Right.
So they're constantly like evolving their tactics to stay, one step ahead of law enforcement.
So we're not talking about like teenagers in their basements anymore. Like this is like organized crime.
Exactly. This is organized, it's sophisticated, it's global.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, cybersecurity firms estimate that cybercrime as an industry is now worth trillions of dollars globally.
Trillions.
Trillions, yeah.
Wow.
And ransomware in particular, I mean, that has just exploded, right? I know that the Tech Uncovered episode mentioned over 600 million in damages in 2021.
Yeah.
But, I mean, newer data is suggesting that that number has, like, skyrocketed. We're probably looking at billions annually now.
Yeah, I remember, like, hearing about hospitals being targeted. I mean, entire cities even.
Right.
Having their systems completely locked down until they pay a ransom.
It's crazy.
But it's not just about, like, the financial impact, right?
Right.
It's like there's a real human cost to this, too.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, you think about, like, disruptions to critical infrastructure or the potential, exposure of people's sensitive personal data. These attacks, they can have devastating consequences
Right.
that reach far beyond just the money.
So we've got this illusion of safety being challenged, right?
Yeah.
This vast cybercrime network that's operating, beneath the surface. It feels like a pretty daunting landscape, to be honest.
It is. It is.
So what are some of the, like, key strategies that these cyber criminals are using to exploit, these vulnerabilities? Like, what should we really be most aware of?
Well, Well, it's interesting because even though like the methods are constantly evolving, right?
Yeah.
One thing remains like super consistent, and that's that the human element is
Okay.
often like the weakest link.
Yeah. It's almost ironic in a way, right?
Well,
We build these like super complex systems with all these layers of security,
right.
and then like a well-crafted phishing email can just completely bypass all of that in like an instant.
It really can. It's crazy.
It's pretty amazing.
It really is a testament to like the power of social engineering.
Yeah.
These attacks, they prey on our like natural inclinations, right? Like
Yeah.
our trust, our curiosity, sometimes even like our fear.
Right.
So it might be a seemingly urgent email from like your bank,
Oh, yeah.
or, a too good to be true offer,
Uh-huh.
or even like a message that looks like it's from a friend.
Yeah.
These tactics, they exploit our emotions to trick us into like clicking on a malicious link or maybe downloading a compromised file,
Right.
things like that.
And it's not just like individuals, right?
Right.
I remember hearing this story about how like a major corporation
Oh, yeah.
got breached because an employee plugged in like an infected USB drive
Oh, gosh.
into their work computer.
Yeah.
And they like found it in the parking lot.
Oh, wow. Classic.
Oh,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it happens way more often than you'd think.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And that actually brings us to like a really crucial point, I think, which is that awareness
Yeah.
is our first line of defense.
Right.
While technology can help mitigate some of these risks, like understanding the tactics
Uh-huh.
that these cyber criminals are using is like paramount.
Okay, so besides like being wary of suspicious emails and things like that,
Yeah.
what are some other practical steps that we can take to like protect ourselves?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know the Tech Uncovered episode talked about like two-factor authentication being important.
Right.
Are there other things we should be doing?
Yeah, definitely. So two-factor authentication, that is an amazing start, right?
Okay.
Because it adds like this extra layer of security by requiring, a second form of verification, like a code that's sent to your phone. Yeah.
In addition to your password. But beyond that, I think it's really important to think about the information that you're sharing online.
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
Do you really need to post your entire like vacation plans,
Oh, that's a good point.
complete with dates and locations
Yeah.
on social media?
Yeah.
Could that information be used to maybe like target you or target your home
Yeah.
while you're away?
It's so easy to forget about that.
Right.
Like all that seemingly harmless information
Yeah.
that we put out there
Yeah.
can be pieced together.
Totally. That's like leaving a trail of like digital breadcrumbs
Right, exactly.
leading right to your doorstep.
Okay, that's a really good point.
And speaking of, digital footprints, let's talk about passwords.
Passwords.
I know. It's like a broken record at this point.
Mm.
But using strong, unique passwords for every single one of your accounts
Yeah,
is so crucial.
I know.
And I mean, remembering dozens of these complex passwords is like a near impossible feat for most of us.
Totally. But thankfully, there are password managers out there
Oh, yeah.
that can securely store
Right.
and generate them for you.
Yeah, password managers have been like a game changer for me, honestly.
Right.
I used to have like the worst habit of just reusing the same password
Oh.
or just like slight variations of it
Right.
across like all my accounts.
Oh, yeah. Classic.
Not exactly like a recipe for security.
No, not at all. It's a super common mistake, though, and it's one that, like, cyber criminals are more than happy to exploit.
Right, of course.
Another thing to think about is, like, the security of your home Wi-Fi network.
Oh,
You
right.
know? Is it password protected? Are you using a strong encryption protocol?
You know what's funny? I never even really thought about my home Wi-Fi as like a potential vulnerability.
Right.
I just figured like, well, it's password protected, so it's secure.
Right.
But I guess there's like different levels of security,
Oh, yeah.
even with home networks.
For sure. And while we're talking about networks, let's talk about public Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
While it's super convenient, it's also often unsecured,
Right.
which makes it super easy for hackers to, like, intercept your data.
Oh, wow.
So if you're using public Wi-Fi, especially for things like online banking or anything sensitive, you should really consider using, like, a virtual private network
Okay.
or a VPN.
A VPN. Okay.
Yeah. And that's basically, it encrypts all your internet traffic.
Okay.
So it adds like a layer of protection between your device and like the public network.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
I travel a lot for work,
Right.
and I'm constantly like relying on public Wi-Fi in airports and hotels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll definitely look into VPNs. It sounds like kind of a must-have
I think so, yeah.
for anyone who uses public Wi-Fi a lot.
Yeah, I think it's an essential tool in this, digital landscape that we live in.
Right.
And, let's not forget about software updates. I know they can be annoying.
Ugh, yeah.
Right.
They always seem to come at the worst time.
I know, right?
Mhm.
But they often contain, crucial security patches
Okay.
that address, known vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Think of it like, locking your doors and windows, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't leave them wide open and invite anyone to just walk in, right?
Right.
Software updates are essentially the same thing for your digital life.
You're totally right. I tend to just put those off, especially when they seem like minor updates.
Right.
But you make a really good point. It's about being proactive.
Yeah.
And closing those digital doors and windows.
Exactly.
So it sounds like, it's a combination of individual responsibility,
Yeah.
being aware of the threats,
Right.
and using the tools available to us to enhance our security.
Mm-hmm.
But the Tech Uncovered episode also talked about the role of companies in all of this,
Yeah.
and the need to kind of advocate for better security practices.
Right.
It can't just be on individuals.
Right. Absolutely not. Companies have a responsibility to safeguard the data they collect.
Yeah.
And, we as consumers, we need to hold them accountable.
Okay.
And we can do this by supporting companies that prioritize security, choosing services that have strong privacy policies,
Right.
and just, demanding more transparency
Yeah.
about how our data is being used.
So it's almost like voting with our wallets in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. Rewarding the companies that do the right thing and kind of putting pressure
Yeah.
on the ones that don't.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that reminds me of something. I don't think the podcast episode really fully addressed this.
Okay.
What about the role of AI in all of this?
That's a really fascinating topic.
Yeah. I mean, AI seems to be impacting every aspect of our lives.
It is.
And I imagine cybersecurity is no exception.
It's not.
But is it a force for good, or is it a potential threat?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, honestly.
Okay.
So on one hand, AI can be a really powerful tool. Yeah.
For defense. Imagine AI systems that are constantly analyzing network traffic, right?
Uh-huh.
And they're detecting anomalies
Yeah.
and potential threats in real time
Right.
way faster than any human could.
Wow.
I mean, there are some cybersecurity firms that are already using AI to identify and block phishing emails
Really?
before they even reach our inboxes.
So it's like a super-powered security guard.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Constantly on patrol on
Totally.
the digital world.
But, on the flip side of that, AI can also be weaponized by people who have malicious intent.
Right.
Imagine AI-powered phishing attacks
Oh, wow.
that can learn and adapt
Right.
to our defenses.
Oh, gosh.
Right. Crafting emails that are just incredibly convincing and personalized,
Wow.
or AI-driven malware
Yeah.
that can rapidly evolve to evade detection.
It's this constant arms race with both sides kind of leveraging AI
Yeah.
to try and gain an advantage.
That's a little unsettling, to be honest.
It is.
It's like a sci-fi movie
It is kind of.
come to life.
It is, yeah.
So are there real-world examples of how AI is being used right now?
Yeah, for sure.
Both for good and bad.
Well, I mean, on the defensive side, AI is being used to automate threat detection and response.
Okay.
So, for example, companies are using AI to analyze massive amounts of data
Yeah.
from security logs,
Uh-huh.
and they're using it to identify patterns and anomalies
Right.
that might indicate that, an attack is underway.
Okay.
So this allows the security teams to respond much faster and more effectively.
Okay.
AI is also being used to improve email security.
Okay.
Identifying and blocking phishing emails
Yeah.
based on the content, the sender reputation, other factors. On the offensive side, we're seeing examples of AI being used to create more sophisticated phishing attacks.
Oh, wow.
So researchers have actually demonstrated AI systems that can generate these highly personalized phishing emails
Wow.
that are, more likely to trick victims.
Right.
And then there's this, growing concern about the potential for AI-powered malware
Right.
that can learn and adapt
Yeah.
to security software, which makes it much harder to detect and remove.
So it seems like AI is kind of amplifying both like the challenges and the possibilities
It
in the
is.
world of cybersecurity. For
So then,
sure, it's a tool that can be used for good or for bad,
right.
and it's up to us to make sure it's used responsibly.
Exactly.
But like, what does that even look like? How do we navigate like this evolving landscape?
Well, I think it starts with awareness, right? We need to understand both like the potential benefits and the risks of
Right.
AI and cybersecurity. We also need to like advocate for ethical guidelines and regulations to make sure that it's developed and used responsibly.
Right.
And, we need to continue to invest
Yeah.
in research and development
Right.
to stay ahead of the curve,
Yeah.
developing new, AI-powered security tools and strategies
Mhm.
to counter these emerging threats.
So it sounds like cybersecurity is becoming increasingly complex,
It is.
with AI adding like another whole layer of intricacy
Yeah,
to the equation.
it is.
But like you said earlier, knowledge is power.
Yes.
The more we understand
Right.
about the threats and the tools at our disposal,
Yeah,
the better equipped we'll be to navigate, this ever-evolving landscape.
exactly. It's not about living in fear, It's about being empowered
Yeah.
with knowledge
Right.
and taking like proactive steps to protect ourselves and our digital lives.
Right, exactly. It's like we started out with this idea of, this digital fortress.
Yeah.
And now we've kind of come to a much more, I guess, realistic understanding of like what the cybersecurity landscape actually is,
Right.
which is complex,
Right.
constantly evolving. And there's really like no easy solution.
No, there isn't. And that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I think, amidst all this complexity, though,
Yeah.
there is this one recurring theme that we've been talking about,
Right.
and that is that awareness
Uh-huh.
is like our most potent weapon. The more we understand the threats,
Yeah.
the tools we have at our disposal,
Right.
and the motivations of, those who are seeking to exploit these vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
the better prepared we're going to be.
It's like learning self-defense, right?
Exactly.
We may never actually need to use it,
Right.
but just having that knowledge
Yeah.
gives you this sense of like confidence and control.
Exactly.
But it's not just about being defensive, right?
Right.
The Tech Uncovered episode also talked about like being proactive,
Yeah.
advocating for change,
Right.
pushing for a more secure digital world.
Yeah.
It can't just be about protecting ourselves.
Precisely. Cybersecurity, it's not just a personal responsibility.
Yeah.
It's a collective one. We need to demand better security practices
Right.
from, the companies we interact with.
Huh?
Support legislation that strengthens, data protection.
Yeah.
And just foster like a culture of cybersecurity awareness
Right.
in our communities.
And that reminds me, this is something that I don't think the podcast episode really fully explored.
Okay.
What about the role of education in all of this?
That's a really important point.
Yeah. How do we equip like future generations with the knowledge and skills they need
Right.
to navigate, this increasingly complex digital world?
That's a really crucial point. And I think cybersecurity education needs to start early.
Yeah.
Like integrating these core concepts into school curricula,
Okay.
Yeah.
We
need to teach kids not just about the like technical aspects of security,
Uh-huh.
but also like online safety, responsible digital citizenship,
Mhm.
critical thinking skills
Yeah.
to discern like credible information from misinformation.
Right. So it's about empowering them to be like informed,
Yes.
responsible,
Yes.
resilient digital citizens.
Exactly.
It's not just about protecting them from threats,
Yeah.
but also like equipping them
Yeah.
to shape,
Yeah.
a safer and more ethical
Yes.
digital
Dissent.
future.
Exactly. And I think that's the most powerful takeaway from all of this.
Yeah.
Cybersecurity, it's not just about firewalls and passwords.
Ah.
It's about people.
Right.
It's about understanding like the human element,
Yeah.
both in terms of our vulnerabilities
Uh-huh.
and our capacity to create a more, secure
Yeah.
and trustworthy digital world.
Well said.
Mm.
I feel like we've covered a lot of ground today,
Yeah,
exploring this illusion of safety,
we did.
the dark underbelly of the cybercrime economy, the human element,
Yeah.
the role of technology,
Mhm.
including AI.
Mhm.
It's been a fascinating journey
It has.
and a little bit daunting at times, to be honest.
It can be.
But ultimately, I'm left with this sense of, I guess, cautious optimism
Yeah.
because while the threats are very real
They are.
and they're constantly evolving,
They are.
so is our understanding of it
Yes.
and, our ability to adapt and respond.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where the real power lies.
I agree.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into cybersecurity. Remember, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.